Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. Evil in disguise. We mentioned in yesterday's Vortex that we'd be talking about that, and here we go. When the Berlin Wall fell in 1989 and the Soviet Union collapsed in 1990, where did all those former communists go? They certainly weren't executed or jailed for crimes against humanity as they should have been. Remember, these men and some women sat atop one of the most despicable forms of government to ever be present on the earth. For example, Mikhail Gorbachev was no angel. The praise heaped on him for democratizing the Soviet Union is greatly misplaced. He did what any sly political leader would do when faced with an enemy that has overpowering economic might that the U.S. possessed at the time. He changed the game. But what lots of people don't know is that for most of his career, he was a dyed-in-the-wool Lenin Marxist communist who rose to great heights in the party, being mentored by one of Joseph Stalin's right-hand men. But he's just one example. What happened to all these communist rulers and middle management petty politicians who terrorized their citizens for decades with midnight raids on their homes and vast travel restrictions and constant crackdowns on religion and imprisonment for the faith? Did they just evaporate into thin air? Did they suddenly become great lovers of freedom? No. They began the Green parties in their respective countries. They turned to the cause of environmentalism. Well, that sort of seems strange, doesn't it? To be sure, Europe's Green parties are headed up and controlled by the former communists of the Eastern Bloc nations. Environmentalism is a sham. It's a ruse to gain back government control over vast populations. And unlike in former days, where they ruled by terror, now they are succeeding by snookering and hoodwinking various nations into thinking what they are doing is good for the planet. And it's all based on junk science. So, the freedoms that people clung to so desperately during the communist regime, they now happily give up and surrender at the voting booth, all in the name of the environment. What do I mean? Well, here you go. Country after country in Europe is passing myriad laws that will increase taxes and restrict travel, limit the number of children that a couple can have, impose fines on people for exceeding their government-allotted expulsion of carbon dioxide. For example, in Holland, the government is requiring GPS devices be installed on all cars. Each car's travel will then be monitored, and if it exceeds what the government allows you to drive, you'll receive your fine in the mail. In Australia, plasma TVs are on the chopping block. Second cars are going to be taxed heavily. Cars will pay a toll to drive into urban areas. A $5,000 tax for having a baby is being considered, plus an annual carbon tax of $800 a year per child. And so it goes. All over the world, government leaders have taken leave of their senses and have become drunk with power and taxation. What does all this have to do with Catholics? Well, in short, whenever governments get too much power, the church pays the price. But more on that later this week. All this week, we're going to be focusing on the environmental movement and how it's being used very cleverly to cripple and ultimately destroy Western civilization and ultimately the Catholic Church. In short, environmentalism is socialism with a happy face on it. And socialism is an enemy of God and therefore the church. For now, enough said. Stay tuned all this week as we continue to unmask this evil in disguise. I'm Michael Voris.
Please help us keep delivering these kinds of messages that so desperately need to be heard and acted on. Join RealCatholicTV.com today as a premium subscriber. Become immersed in the faith established by Jesus Christ. The Catholic Church is the only hope against evil because that is its God-given mission. As our Lord said, apart from me, you can do nothing. Join RealCatholicTV.com today as a premium subscriber and come to learn and love Christ more deeply.